What's up, Sass?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I've been chilling. I am rotating through endocrinology right now, which I've learned means that you give people insulin. You tell them that they can't eat sugar at any point for the rest of their life, and then you go home. So it's pretty cushy gig, honestly.
And then you go home.
Fun fact about me this week. Okay, so if you're watching the podcast, you might notice I've got this shark tooth necklace on, which I normally don't wear because I think it's a little bit corny. But the backstory is I found this shark tooth on the beach, and I was like, "What am I gonna do with this?" And I put it in a little display case, and then I was like, "I'm never looking at this." So then I was like, "I'll make it a necklace," and then I made it a necklace. And then I was like, "This is cheesy. I'm never gonna wear it." But yesterday, I was supposed to go hang out with some new friends and watch the Jaws movie because it was like a live like outdoor screening here in Boston. And then everyone bailed, and I was like, well, this is a very depressing day, so I will cope by wearing my shark tooth necklace in commemorance of the deceased Jaws movie.
That's wild.
What
I just dropped something on the floor. I don't want my cat to get it. Yeah, every time you do a fun fact, I swear like it's like some deep depressing like backstory. God damn it, I dropped it again.
Our listening audience is slowly going to piece together all of the depressing facts of my life.
I was gonna ask, is it the first time I've literally never seen you wear that before? So I was like, what the fuck is that?
I think I wore it the time that I made it, and I was like, cool. And then I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, maybe not.
My fun fact is, I don't know, man. I joined a kickball league recently, and that's been fun. I'm going tomorrow. Maybe good? I said this already at some point. I'm not good. No, I'm fucking awful. I think there's someone on the team who like low-key hates me because I keep fucking up, and I'm just like, this is an adult kickball league for fun, bro. Why are you so pissed? I don't give a fuck what you think.
Didn't you say there's a guy who's like super sweaty or something?
That's him. That's
so funny.
Fucking asshole. I don't know why. He's I'll just say this for the podcast because I think it's really funny. There's one guy, I think I told you about this, who was like, he kept getting outs for us. And like, first off, no one's taking this seriously. There are people who are at this who are like high and drunk while they're playing on our team. Okay.
That sounds
like
fun.
No one cares. Yeah, it's really fun. I don't get high or drunk, just FYI for the podcast. And this guy, like, he keeps getting out, so you can tell he doesn't really get out or socialize much, but like he's a nice guy, and so he got out, and then the guy who's like a total dick on our team, he turns to me and my other friend, and he's like, "It's like fucking checkers versus chess, man." And I'm just like, dude, you're an asshole. What the fuck? Like, who cares? Like, who gives a shit?
Funny. I feel like that's how we sound when we roll up to Magic tournaments, bro. I can't shake that feeling.
We see the mono green counters players. It's like checkers versus chess, man.
Scry guys. Well, so I know we were going to start by chatting a little bit about our limited stuff. So even though we're, I think, primarily standard players at this point, we've both been enjoying the Edge of Eternity's limited format a lot. It's been really cool.
But you didn't at the start. You were so doomer, and you were like, nah, fuck this shit. And then we did one draft together, and you're like, let's draft every day.
Hey, you were doomer about it too, actually. I feel like at the beginning you were like, this format sucks. I hate spacecraft.
Okay, hold on. I do want to say, I still think this is not a good format. I think it is fun, like most limited sets. Like, as much as I fucking didn't enjoy MKM because of like the art, or like OTJ because of the art, I still had fun in the Abzan space, and I'm having a lot of fun in the Sultai space in this format, you know?
Yeah.
I do think that like white and red are considerably worse than the other three colors in this draft.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Actually, I think
I had some really good white drafts, so I will defend white. I don't know if red is very good, but
in those white drafts, was white not extremely wide open door open?
Yeah, I think that you have to be like only one or two white drafters at the table to make white work, but it can work
Right,
if
which is
you're
an
in that seat.
Yeah, but I think that like that's an indication that like okay, the color's only good when the seed. Which I get. That's the skill of draft, though. I don't know. This is like getting too philosophical.
That's fair.
Like,
That's fair.
it is what it is. I've been having a lot of fun with the set. I think it's fun. I think there are some cards that just like make it really, really unfun though. Specifically like Ouroboros and like Cosmic Grand Zenith and like what's that other card that's fucking obnoxious? Nova Hellkite is a fucking humongous bomb and unfair as fuck. There's one other I can't Elegy Acolyte. That's the number one. Let me go look at let's go get the data. Let's go get the data, boys.
Pulling it up. Yeah, I fortunately I haven't ever had the chance to play any of those cards, and I've only played against Ouroboros once, but it was like the turn they played it, I didn't have removal, and then the next turn their entire board was like 5/7s and bigger, and I was like, well, hit the concede button.
I don't know, man. Ouroboros, I've just seen it I did a draft yesterday. I didn't even tell you about this. I did a premiere draft yesterday with my friend. I went 2-3, right? All 3 of the losses, my opponent had Ouroboros. I could not believe it.
That's
in a premiere
insane.
draft in Plat. What are the chances I see Ouroboros 3 times back to back to back? Like, that's insane.
That's actually brutal, insane, bro. That's got to be depressing.
It is. So right now, let's do a little data, right? Right now, the highest win rate card is. It's interesting because I think yesterday it was a Ouroboros, or whenever it was we last talked about this. Right now it's Quantum Riddler, which makes sense. But Quantum Riddler doesn't seem as oppressive as the other cards, which is crazy to say. Right?
Quantum Riddler's really good, bro.
It is, but I don't think it's like as oppressive and like must answer or you're gonna fucking lose as a Ouroboros or Elegy Acolyte. Like I think I'm more afraid of Elegy Acolyte and a Ouroboros than Quantum Riddler.
I think Quantum Riddler, like, so I had it in one of my decks that I trophied with, and every single time I played it, it was like, it was a 2-drop that draws you a card, and then on turn 5, it's like a massive flyer that nothing can deal with. ETBs and draws you already, and then like, I didn't even realize the fact that the little line of text at the bottom that if you draw a card with 1 or 0 cards in hand, you actually draw 2 cards instead. I didn't realize that also triggers like any time you draw a card. So I had no cards in my hand. I played it, drew 2, played another one of them. Then next turn I had 1 card in my hand, and when I drew for a turn, I drew 2 cards. So over the course of the game, this thing drew me like 5 or 6 cards. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, Quantum Riddler is for sure the GOAT. I want to pull up the rest of the data because I want to make a point here. Please. You're gonna understand the point I'm about to make. So we have top 5, okay? Cosmic Grand Zenith, Quantum Riddler, Elegy Acolyte, and Ouroboros. These all make sense. These are big bombs for sure. Okay. What's number 5?
Should I guess?
Xenomorph Imago.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. I'm saying this because I'm Go ahead, you say it.
He's making fun of me because I refused to splash this in, I think, a blue-black deck, which trophied, by the way, bro, okay? So I did not need the Xenomorph Imago. Yeah, okay, I will admit, I had never played with it at all at the time that you were trying to convince me to splash it, and I was like, it looks fine. And then I tried playing the Simic midrange deck in Standard, and I was like, oh, this card is actually kind of insane when it does the thing.
I do understand your thought process though, because like usually you do not want to like the rule of thumb in draft, I think mostly that I've learned is that you don't want to splash for an early game card, especially when it's 2 different pips at 2, right? Because like you want this thing to come down at 2 ideally. But like the thing is like it's okay for this to come down late game because then it gets turned on and it is a bomb late game that makes something a 6/6. Like this, even though like it's supposed to be something that you want at 2, it's still a bomb late in the game because of its effect.
I think I also missed that, like, in this format, there are so many ways to make multiple lands enter per turn because of all the lander tokens and certain cards that, like, there's a rare that lets you play multiple lands and stuff. So I missed that this can not only turn itself into a 6/6 flyer late in the game, like every single turn, but it can also, like, pump multiple things on your board to just be, like, massive. And 6/6 is, like, an insane stat line for this format. I think there's like only one card that can handle a 6/6, which is the like 5/7 reach guy. That's the only thing I can think of that can like square up against a 6/6.
Well, there's also Orbital Plunge in red, which deals 6.
That's true. That's a good point. And there's the red reach thing that's a 6/6, but again, red is so bad that like you're unlikely to see that many strong red decks anyway, I think.
So just reading off I just want to talk about the top 10 because I think it's really important, right? Sure. So the rest of them is Sunset Saboteur, Nova Hellkite, Celestial Colonnade, which makes sense. Like, Celestial Colonnade is insane. I actually think you're supposed to splash for Celestial Colonnade, which is crazy because it's a mainland, because it's just that good. It's really just that good. And it makes sense because it's like, I think people consider this the most like broken mainland of all time in Magic.
I think it's probably seen more play than any other mainland, at least in the past.
Yeah. Warmaker Gunship, Possibility Technician. These are all rares. The last one, though, is, and I don't understand this, but I kind of get it, is the uncommon Dubious Delicacy.
Interesting. I mean, it is really good.
It is, but like, I don't know. I feel like I would rather vote out than this, or grab kill than this card. I know why it's high win rate, though, because you can do the other thing and it's sack fodder, but like...
Yeah. And
I don't know, I just feel like...
Matters cards.
Yeah. It's just so dubious.
Dubious, so whether dubious. It's a delicacy.
Can we talk about, I think, you know, as I'm looking at this data, can I segue off to something else?
Sure.
I think it's really interesting that if you look at the draft data, a lot of these cards on this list are actually transitioning into standard very well.
Yeah, you're so right.
Like if you go look at the list, right, outside of, I'd say, Dubious Delicacy and Possibility Technician, and that makes sense. Those two make sense as to why they don't transition well to draft. But if you go down the list, right, LG Acolyte sees play now, Quantum Riddler sees play now, Cosmic Grand Zenith is a huge player, Sunset Saboteur is actually, I don't know if you saw, but a Dimir midrange player just trophied a huge event with it. It was the MTG Arena thing that was streamed over this weekend. Yeah. He was playing 3 copies of those, or I think it was 2 copies of them in Dimir midrange, which makes sense because it helps turn Kaido on.
That's a great point because it's so hard to block and it's hard to remove as well. Are you looking at the card statistics page on 17 lands? Is that what you're looking at here?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Here, do you want me to send it?
No, I got to pull it up.
And then Nova Hellkite, which is now seeing a lot of play in the Mono Red Dragons thing. If this is a real thing, I don't know yet or not. I think time will tell. There's the new fucking like munitions, ammo, weapons deck that plays Warmaker Gunship. And then there's I think the biggest ones, though, which I think is really interesting, is that Gene Morphimago and Oroboroid have spawned this new like Simic mid-range deck that I'm just in love with. Yeah, what do you think about this deck? Because you messaged me saying you were playing it, and I'm so in love with this deck because I love Oroboroid so much. So what do you think?
Oroboroid is sick, man. So just in case anybody has not seen this card, because the Simic deck is a little bit new, Oroboroid it's a 4-mana 1/3 in green that each combat you put X 1/1 counters on your whole team, where X is Oroboroid's power. So it starts as a 1/3, but then it snowballs because it puts a counter on itself, and then the next turn it sees that it has 2 power and puts 2 counters on everything, and then the next turn 4 counters on everything. But also, if you have something like Gene Morphimago, which is the 2-mana 1/3 flyer that landfall makes a creature a 3/3 or makes it a 6/6 if you have 6 lands. If you target your Oroboroid with this, then you basically are pumping your Oroboroid's base power, which if it has counters on it, it still has base power 1. So you're still pumping the base power. And then the Oroboroid goes to combat and puts counters equal to its total power on everything. So just like the turn that you play Oroboroid, if you hit a land drop with Gene Morphimago, then it becomes a 3/3 Oroboroid, puts 3 counters on your whole team, and then like you're off to the races. So I mean, I played this deck like admittedly only like 5 or 6 times, I think, on Arena Ladder, and it seems really fun. I'll give it that. Like there are really explosive games where you go like turn 1 Llanowar Elf, turn 2 like Paw Patch Formation Offspring, and then turn 3 a Roboroid, and you just have this like massive board. But I do think that the deck suffers a little bit from having a difficult time with interaction. I'll pull up the deck list here on screen if we can find it. But basically, this is running only Bushwhack, the fight spell that can tutor a land, and Into the Floodmaw. These are the only pieces of interaction that the deck is running. And I'm just so... I don't know, bro. I'm so dubious, much like the dubious delicacy. Because I feel like this deck just folds to control. Like, there's just so little you can do. And people are running the Repulsive Mutation in the sideboard, the Simic counterspell that they have to pay X, where X is like the greatest power among creatures you control in order to not have the spell countered. But even so, I just feel like this deck like just folds to board wipes, folds to interaction. Like against Beza, this deck looks kind of silly because they just have a ton of chump blockers. They are gaining life. And I think that in blue-green in particular, we don't have too many great tools to deal with the format. Like blue is very powerful right now, but I think green struggles a little bit in standard. So what do you think of the deck? Have you come to like A tier, or you think it's still like working its way up?
I think it's a work in progress. So I want to talk about. So I first heard of this deck from a Doomwake video, because I don't know if you noticed this, but there's really only one guy playing this deck in the challenges, and his name is Hamuda, and this is the guy who created the deck according to Doomwake, right? And he's changing the deck list like week by week. But I think one thing that's really interesting about this deck is it fucks red decks, because red decks don't have a good way of dealing with creatures that get this big. Like once a Roboroid gets out of hand, it puts it out of range of all the red removal spells, right?
Yeah.
I think like if they don't have the answer immediately, right? Like let's say they play a Roboroid on turn 4, and then the next turn it's like a 2/4, right? If they don't have Obliterating Bolt, or like, I don't know, the White Dragon's red part of it that deals 5 damage, right? I think this thing just gets really out of hand. So I think this deck probably does a good job against... I imagine this deck, it feels like to me, just looking at the list, does a good job of running Cauldron. It's also main decking, like, now he's running a Azure Beastbinder, which fucks Cauldron too.
Oh yeah, that's smart.
I think this deck is a work in progress, though. I think, like, I could see versions of this that are running, like, Repulsive Mutation in main, which is the counterspell in Simic. I could see versions of this that, like again, I think one of the reasons why this deck sucks, which you just said, is it just folds to board wipe. Like, Day of Judgment is the bane of this deck's existence. But you're in blue, right? Like, I think there's a version of this that runs less creatures. Like, I think you could cut... Like, I see some lists running Mockingbird and, like, more Sentinels. I think you could, like, shave some stuff and run more counter spells or more interaction or more card draw. Like, I think... I know this is the classic Sass thing. I know that's what you're saying. Like,
interaction and card draw, baby.
I just think there's, like, this deck is running way too many creatures. And I think there's some list that runs, like, the sticky stuff. Like, Pop Treasures Recruit, Sentinel, Sirach. Like, the stuff that really, really sucks to get fucked with. Enduring Curiosity. Like,
I think the current deck list, like, all the creatures are kind of sticky creatures, though. Like, I mean, okay, the exception of maybe Bristly Bill, because if you just play Bristly Bill on 2 and do nothing, it's like an easy target for removal. But everything else in the deck, like Spyglass Siren, Llanowar Elves, Floodpits Drowner, Gene Morph Imago, like, they're all cards that do things powerfully when they're on the battlefield inherently by themselves, and are, like, either a good target for removal that, like, they have to remove, like Llanowar Elves, or they're, like, they already did their thing, like Floodpits Drowner or Spyglass Siren making the map or whatever. So I just don't know, like, if there's a good way to, like, modify the creatures. I just wish there was better interaction in the Simic space, which I think currently we both agree that Simic has the worst interaction of any color pair in Standard.
Yeah. And it should, right? Like, you can't give Simic, like, it's the most, like, it gets it's the color combo that's supposed to be Value Town, right? You can't be Giga Value Town on card draw and creatures and have good interaction. Like,
Yeah.
I get the color wheel is balanced like that for a reason, but I do think there is a world where like you play stock up in this, you play Repulsive Mutation main, maybe even you play like Negate main, like, and you just side it out, or Spell Pierce. I think there's some version of this to be worked on that cuts back on some creatures and plays more interaction in card draw. And I don't think this is a bad idea. I really do. I think having Enduring Curiosity and Ouroboros as your top end, and maybe cut, like, I could see a version of this that just doesn't run Land War Elves, honestly.
Yeah.
For more interaction.
I know, like, we chatted at length at one time about this Reed Duke article that he published when Land War Elves came back into Standard, where he talks about how Land War Elves is like great in game one as a surprise factor, especially if you get it on turn one, that just ramps you out like crazy. But then he actually boards out like 2 to 3 to even all of his Land War Elves in a lot of post-board matchups when he's playing it, because post-board your opponent is going to have a lot more ways to answer creatures in a deck like this, and your Land War Elves is basically just like a waste of a 1-drop if your opponent's just going to easily answer it. So I could see that this is like a deck that maybe starts out by trying to be like this really explosive game one deck where you just like dump a billion creatures on the board, and then maybe game two it shifts into a more traditional mid-rangey game plan where it boards in like Spell Pierces and more interaction and takes out some of the, like, trim the fat of some of the creatures in the post-board games.
Yeah, I agree.
So now that
I still don't understand why this. Oh, go ahead.
No, finish off.
I still don't understand why this deck runs Subterranean Shooter. I think the card's just bad. It just every time I see it in his list, I'm just like, what? Why? Like, why? Generally, why? Like, I would rather play stock up the card than Subterranean Shooter. But I get the synergy, but it is what it is.
Fair. It's just a value town card. I'm not a huge fan of it either, TBH. But yeah. So now that we're talking about Standard, before we jump into like the whole shift of the Standard meta, I wanted to share my experience of, I went to a Standard RCQ, not this most recent weekend, but the weekend before. So the very first weekend of the RCQ season of this new format. And I thought it was really cool to go and just like see what people were cooking in the new Standard, because it was the first ever paper Standard event that everybody was at with this new format. And it definitely feels like Edge of Eternities was really, really shaping Standard. And I think we're going to continue to see that. So at this tournament, I saw like a huge variety of decks. I was really impressed. So there were plenty of Vivi players, which I expected, both on Cauldron and on Prowess. There were plenty of Dimir mid-range players there as well. Seems like people are just basically trying to 1-for-1 replace the removal spells that Dimir lost, which is kind of what we predicted with Shoot the Sheriff replacing Go for the Throw, Tragic Trajectory replacing the 1-drop removal spell slot. I brought the Esper Self Bounce deck, which I'm sure Sass will talk about at length at some point in this podcast, because he is now the Esper Self Bounce god, with the new Cosmic Grand Zenith tech, as well as he's got one right there just waiting to go, as well as our favorite little blue ball, the Cryogen Relic. Ladies and gentlemen, he's pulling out a blue ball. Sass, you can't show this to the audience.
Just go continue, because I will go on a rampage talking about this fucking card. But anyway, continue.
Amazing. Interestingly, I didn't see too many aggro decks there, which I think is reflective of the loss of so many powerful red cards in the bannings. I did see a handful of Boros Burn, but none of the players piloted it to the top 8. But it was a really cool experience. It was a very large event. It was like, I think around 40 players. It was at the most competitive game store in Boston. It's called Pandemonium, if you guys have ever heard of it. Saw some familiar faces. I randomly saw Doomwake there, who I like didn't even know lived in the area. So that was cool. And then I was fortunate enough to top 8. I did not finish into the finals. I did get eliminated pretty early by the person who actually won the tournament. So congrats to them. And the top 8 composition, if I recall correctly, was me on Esper, I think 2 or 3 Vivi players, 2 or 3 Dimir mid-range players, and I think the last one was the mono green list, which you and I are still pretty down on, but it has been putting up results. So that was the meta at the start of the format, and now that we're a week in, it really doesn't seem to have shifted that much, with the exception of maybe some shift in the percentages of what people are playing. You want to chat about that?
Yeah, because I did a deep dive last night. I sent you some videos last night that like really kind of like opened up my eye, right? So like, I'm gonna make a hot take right now. I think we are headed into the trajectory of a format that could potentially be worse than Cutter.
That's a tragic trajectory if I've ever seen one.
That is a very tragic trajectory. What do you think about that statement before I continue?
I personally disagree with that statement.
Okay.
I do want
All right.
I want you to elaborate, because maybe you can convince me, but at the time being, I think I disagree with that.
So right now, I think a lot of people are overreacting, and maybe I'm overreacting too. I'm not siding with the majority of people, but I do kind of feel like we are headed that way. I just think that, and again, it's too early to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I don't really care. I think that this Vivi deck is a problem. Specifically the Cauldron version. Mm-hmm. And I think obviously the numbers are a little bit like astronomically showing this to be the case. But one of the big issues that I think is also like just in the background is that, yes, the numbers are high, but I think what a lot of people aren't talking about is that this problem, this card, Vivi, and the way it interacts with Soul Cauldron, I just feel like it's on another level of, I think it's like pioneer to maybe modern levels of power level. And people are saying like, oh, like, you know, they might print more stuff in other sets, but like, I just think this is going to be the most powerful thing to do until the next ban announcement. Like, I can't imagine them printing something more powerful in Spider-Man, Lorwyn Eclipse, or Avatar. Like, again, I could be wrong. But like, remember, originally the way things were supposed to work was we were supposed to have Lorwyn before Spider-Man and Avatar. That's not what happened now, and I wonder how that affects balancing, right? Like, I wonder if like if we had Lorwyn instead of Final Fantasy right now, would the format be better or healthier? Would we have better answers? I don't know. I just think that even though the numbers are glorified and people are calling for bans, and I agree, I think it's too early to call for bans, I still think it looks really grim. Like, I just think this is the most powerful thing to do in Standard, and it's going to be for a while. And it just sucks. Like, it really just fucking sucks. Like, I don't know how else to say it, but like, why would I play Izzet Prowess? Right? Which is, in my opinion, like the actual balanced version of Vivi. Like, really, right? And this is why I think they should ban Cauldron and not Vivi, because I think Vivi is a really, really cool card. It's very expensive. I don't want people to lose money on Vivi. Like, I think the card is cool. I just think what makes it broken in Standard is just the interaction it has with Izzet, with Cauldron in particular. I think the card is fine in Izzet Prowess. I don't think it's broken in Izzet Prowess.
Yeah, I agree. So I do think we probably are both in agreement right now that like if we had to pick a single most powerful card in Standard right now, it's Vivi. But I don't necessarily think that like Vivi itself is a card that has to be banned, because like you said, in the Izzet Prowess deck, like it's just a powerful card. It's the Cosmic Grand Zenith of Esper Self Bounce. It's that role in Izzet Prowess. It's like your bigger like finisher, take down the game kind of card. But it's not like inherently busted or pushing the deck over the edge. I think where the Cauldron deck like really abuses this card, and this is a good time for me to chat about Cauldron because I've been playing this a ton and I love this deck now. I think the reason that Cauldron pushes this over the edge is that it doesn't care if Vivi is alive or dead. It's just like it's like using every piece of the buffalo to take a phrase from Lords of Limited. loves to have a Vivi in play because Vivi is just an amazing creature in play, right? Like it just gives you so much value, so much mana. And then if it dies, you put it under Agatha's Soul Cauldron, and now all of your creatures are Vivi. So you're kind of even happier that your opponent killed it, which means really the only way to deal with the Vivi is to exile it or have like significant graveyard hate, like a Ghost Vacuum or a Rip or something that can prevent you from ever getting the Vivi Cauldron combination online. Now, I think that by itself, it already makes this deck very, very good, but I think the thing that pushes the deck over the edge even further that I've noticed from playing it and that I've noticed from chatting with people is even when your opponent has the graveyard hate or has the Vivi exile, the rest of the package of the deck is just so powerful and synergistic that you don't even care. Like, there are games that you just never see a Vivi or never see a Cauldron, and you're like, I don't care. I still have the Mako, FOMO, Tursa, Profts package, which is inherently a super strong synergistic package that it's already seen play like back when we had the Jeskai Oculus deck running around in the last RC season.
Yeah.
And if that's your fallback, like that's plan C, that's a really, really strong deck. And so it's like your opponent is spending a turn, they're spending mana to play this graveyard hate that they don't even know if it's going to matter in the deck because maybe you're just on the game plan of the Profts. I'm going to discard, draw my whole deck and make massive FOMO that creates multiple combats, and your graveyard hate looks silly. Well, I guess it's not creating multiple combats against the graveyard hate likely, but you're still making these giant creatures that are very hard to deal with.
And yeah, I think that just exemplifies why I'm like already fed up with the deck. And yes, like I'm practicing against it a bunch because I know this is the boogeyman for me to like beat for when I go to my RCQ starting next weekend. I guess this weekend at this point. I see this being a tragic, and that could be the name of the episode, a tragic trajectory. I really just like, I know it's too early to say this, River. I really do. But I just think that like, this is not looking good. I don't think something from Avatar, I'll say Avatar and from Spider-Man is going to stop this from being an issue. Like, I don't think, I don't know. It's, and maybe I'm too doomer, but it's just looking really, really, really grim right now. I just think this is going to be the best thing to do. And there always needs to be a best deck, but I think this deck is, it's a little bit higher than like what should be a best deck in Standard. Maybe even more than that. I don't know.
Yeah. I think so. Something I'm looking forward to is at the end of the month, we're going to have the Spotlight Series in Orlando, which is going to be the biggest Standard tournament since the last Spotlight Series in January, honestly. But I think that this will be... He will be. We're going to be rooting for him, ladies and gentlemen. I think that'll be a really good metric to see like what percent of the 1,000 players that show up are going to bring the Vivi Cauldron deck. Because if it's like 50%, I think we're in like emergency ban territory range according to Wizards metrics. If they were to ban something, what do you think they should ban from this deck?
I mean, I think we're both in agreement on it. We said it earlier. They need to ban Cauldron. You shouldn't ban Vivi. It's not, it would be really depressing to ban Vivi. I also think Cauldron does this thing where they have to think about every activated ability for the rest of time. They have to think about how are we going to balance this? Like, how is this going to be fair? Like, and you made a great point earlier. Agatha's Soul, or well, you didn't make it earlier, but you told this to me on another day. Agatha's is probably not going to decrease in price if they ban it, because it still sees a bunch of playing Commander. Also sees playing Modern too.
This is like an argument that I think I've been hearing from different folks online recently is if Wizards was to ban something from this deck, not only would it shake up the meta, but a lot of people, especially competitive grinders, would be super, super upset because of the price of the paper cards. So if you look at the deck right now, this is like the most obscenely expensive Standard deck I think that I have ever seen personally. It's currently sitting at almost $800. This version that I have pulled up right now is $764, but I've seen versions up to, I think the highest I've seen was like $850. And this is primarily because not only are the lands really expensive because Izzet is so strong in Standard right now, and Starting Town is up to $30 because every single deck is playing it in Standard, but specifically Agatha's Soul Cauldron and Vivi Ornithir are both mythic rares that are not only like becoming the best cards in standard, and in the case of Vivi, multiple decks in standard, but they're also commander staples. So Vivi is one of the most popular commanders these days. I think Vivi's in the top like 100 or top 50 commanders right now. And Agatha Soul Cauldron is, yeah, it's insane. People love Vivi as a commander. There's like tons of memes on Reddit of like, if a Vivi commander player pulls up to your pod, just leave because it's like not going to be a fun game.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And Soul Cauldron is like a colorless artifact that works with any activated ability. So it basically goes into any deck that cares about activated abilities in Commander. Now, I think that is actually kind of a good thing because the Commander balloon will support the price of these cards even if they get banned in Standard. So I think it would like suck to, buy $800 worth of cards to go try to spike the Spotlight series in August, and then September 1st they ban Soul Cauldron. But I do think that you could recoup a lot of the value of the deck even if something did get banned because of the Commander balloon like supporting the price. Now, I say all of this, but I do want to be clear that I currently don't think that anything should be banned. I think that it is alarming to see how rapidly this deck has risen, but I do think that it needs more time because we're just barely 2 weeks into this format, and I think that it's a little bit of an overreaction to just call for bans immediately.
I agree. As much as I am doomer mode about this, I also believe it's too early to say, and I've said it multiple times earlier. It's going to be interesting to see what the Spotlight series does. I watched, I was watching that Misplaced Ginger video, and he brought up a really, really good point, and I want to reiterate this. If there were just more events, if Wizards put out more events for people to compete, we would have more data, and we would be able to know this earlier. Like, I just wish there were more ways, like, even for me, like, I wish I had more than one shot to play an RCQ every week. Like, I wish I could play 2 RCQs a weekend. I wish I could play 3 RCQs a weekend, but there's just not. And I think if we had more data and maybe even like more higher stakes MTGO tournaments online, we'd have more data to understand this kind of stuff. But right now it's just, I don't know if they care about Standard, make more events, put more surprising into it, man. Like, I don't know. And I going back to what you said earlier, I do agree. Like, it's too early to ban anything, but like I said, it's looking like a tragic trajectory, man. Like, I cannot stress this enough. I think this is, I just get and it's completely subjective. I just get this feeling we're on the same course and the same path as we were with Cutter. And honestly, dude, I hope to fuck I show up to that Spotlight series and it's 50% because I'm going to fucking find a way to prepare for that matchup because that's what I'm doing right now with you.
Yeah.
I hope to fuck that all 9 of my matches are that because I'm going to come prepared for that matchup. It would suck to play that deck that many times. I think that'd be a balanced format, or an unbalanced format, but it is what it is. What was the other thing I was going to say? I noticed we were just talking about, and a lot of people were talking about this too, this like idea that like, and maybe I'm in the out crowd here on this, maybe you're not of the same belief with this. I think it's fucking horseshit and awful that a game company decides whether or not to ban or not, and we don't have any proof that they do this based on the prices of cards. Like, I think that's fucking horseshit, and they should never do that. Like, if it was up to me, like, let's say there was a world where Cauldron and Vivi don't have a high price tag in outside of Commander. If we knew for a fact they were going to go down to $1 if they banned them, right? The fact that they even consider that makes me mad. I don't think we should ever be banning or balancing a game because of prices. But I understand that's not realistic. Like, this is a business at the end of the day. So,
yeah.
I don't know. It just makes me mad.
I don't think that we have evidence that they do that, right? Have we ever seen...
We don't.
I think there is reason to be suspicious of that, obviously, because that does seem like a logical factor to consider when you're running a business. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think that the price should really be a consideration because if we're truly maximizing for gameplay, that should not be a worry. But I do get the argument that like players are going to be upset if they spend a ton of money and then like imagine if you like spent like $50 buying Monopoly and then all of a sudden like you got banned from playing Monopoly. You'd be understandably pissed. You'd be like, well, what the hell did I buy that for?
Yeah, no, I get that, but like, I just wish we could live in a world where that wasn't the case. But I know that's unrealistic. And again, you're right. We don't have any proof to believe that Wizards does that. But I don't like when people bring up the argument of like, again, I'm saying this more from my personal belief on the podcast, so people know this, not for what's right or what's wrong. I just don't think that like that should ever happen. Like we should never ever consider price. Like in my world, like I get it. Like it sucks to have your $50 card banned, but like I'd rather a balanced game than someone like get fucked over $50. Like that sucks, but that's just how I feel.
In an optimal world, these cards are all like 20 cents and it doesn't matter what gets banned for that reason, you know?
In an optimal world, we could proxy in Wizards. I don't know. That's a whole other thing. I'm not even going to say that. That's its own other thing.
Well, so speaking of the bans, I think that we're in agreement that nothing should get banned at the moment. But
yeah,
this deck is clearly very powerful, and I think arguably and commonly agreed to be the most powerful standard deck. So to emphasize that with some data, I have here pulled up some data from recent events. These are all just MTGO events from the last month, and some of these are even like outside the standard meta. So we don't have much data right now, but just an aggregate of all the data that we have since rotation happened. Izzet Cauldron is sitting at the highest win rate of any deck in the format. It's at 56.3%, which is very high for a deck. And the margin of error for that is above the mean, which means that it is provably significantly better than a 50% win rate. It is not just random chance or player ability or whatever that is causing this to be seemingly above the win rate. It is statistically above an average win rate. Every other deck in the format that is widely played, with the exception of like some very small, like Boros Mice is like 40% and below, but every other deck is within that margin of error, meaning that a good player could pilot it to a higher than 50% win rate, a bad player would pilot it at lower than 50%. And then if we look at all of the matchup data individually, we see that for every single matchup, Cauldron also has an above 50% win rate. So again, this data is very, very limited. It's just from a few events that we've seen recently. But with that limited data, currently Cauldron does not have a single bad matchup in the format. With the exception of this Orzhov mid-range, but this is only across 40 games, and that's not really hardly any data. So
yeah,
as it stands, this deck is really, really powerful. And I think that begs the question of if you're not going to be playing this deck, what are you going to do to prep against it?
Guess is as good as mine. Like, I think this goes back to the thing you were saying earlier of like, you bring in hate pieces for plan A and B, but they just have plan C and you just lose. And that's happened in a lot of the games that we've play tested. Me and River have done a lot of play testing and me playing Esper. By the way, we're just going to say this. We are not using the title Esper Self-Bounce, okay? On this podcast, if you do it or I do it, we owe each other $1. Because I can't fucking stand that name. Well, yeah, you are going to be poor because you've said it like 3 times already and it triggers the fuck out of me. We are calling the deck Esper Pixie. I don't care that we lost bounce pieces and things to bounce stuff with in the bannings. It's called Esper Pixie, guys. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I hate seeing websites call it Esper Self-Bounce. It makes sense in the Dimir bounce deck to call it Dimir self bounce or Dimir bounce. I think Dimir bounce sounds a lot better. I think Dimir's like self bounce isn't a good title for a deck. Anyway, it's another story for another time. What was I gonna say? Yeah, we were just saying like, what are you doing against this deck? Yeah. I don't know. Like right now, I'm playing. Like I said, I'm playing Esper Pixie. I'm trying to decide what the best haste pieces here. In white. Like, I see a lot of people in Pixie bringing in Devout Decree because it gets rid of Vivi, removes it on the spot, and then they can't fuck with it for... Like, I've seen a lot of, like, people just, like, they give up on the graveyard hate stuff, and they just specifically sideboard in good removal pieces. Like, one thing that I was thinking about, honestly, is, like, bringing in the end. To just say, you don't have Vivi in your deck anymore. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
But it's 4 mana. It sucks.
That is rough. And they're in blue, so they have access to like Spell Pierce and stuff, which makes it even harder.
Yeah.
So because I've been playing Cauldron a lot, I've been trying to keep an eye out for what cards feel the worst to me. And I think that there are a lot of different ways that different people have been approaching the matchup. And I don't think that many people yet agree on like what the best way to deal with this is. So I wanted to go through some of these to like put ideas out there, and so that we can maybe work on like what cards or combinations of cards compose a deck that actually really takes down the Cauldron deck. And so one way of approaching this, I think that we've already talked about, is just let's get Vivi exiled and never have to see Vivi under a Cauldron. So I think the plan A of this deck is put Vivi under a Cauldron and everything is a Vivi now. There's a lot of ways to deal with that. So way one is graveyard hate. So Rest in Peace, Ghost Vacuum, and the like. These things are taking Vivi out of the graveyard so that Vivi can never get under a Cauldron. Now,
can we talk about, real quick before we continue, can we talk about the difference between Ghost Vacuum and Rest in Peace? Because I think that's really important.
Yeah, you talk about this because I feel like you've been really interested in this difference.
Yeah, so because I still don't know the answer. I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know the answer, right? I think if you play Ghost Vacuum, you sit in this position where they have Cauldron and you have Ghost Vacuum, and neither of you can tap because the other one will respond with your graveyard hate piece to exile whatever, right? And that just gets really awkward. It makes the situation where like you've spent a turn doing nothing, they have a turn with their thing that they can just exile other things. And then you have to wait until the next person has the second hate piece. So I don't like that, and it's a non-bow. Or I'm sorry, the other card is a non-bow with Pixie. And then the other issues is like with Rest in Peace, right? Rest in Peace commits 2 mana and having to be in white. And 2 mana is a lot. 2 mana is more than 1 mana. It's double the mana. So it sucks. Like, it really does. Like, spending 2 mana is like spending half a turn, maybe your whole turn sometimes, to shut off this deck. And you're way more privy to getting fucked by Spell Pierce, which is something the deck does. But I will say, it does ruin the deck a lot more. I don't know what the answer is. And I think a lot of people are asking, like, is it Ghost Vacuum or is it Rest in Peace or is it some other hate piece? I don't fucking know. Anyway, move on.
My take on that is I think it's going to depend on your deck, which one is more important. Because obviously if you have any graveyard component, you don't want to play Rest in Peace because it is going to destroy your own graveyard. I think that also Ghost Vacuum is a little bit more awkward in the sense of like, if you play a Ghost Vacuum and they have a Cauldron out, like, or if you play your Ghost Vacuum, they put their Cauldron out, and then they discard Vivi when both are already on the battlefield, then you're kind of in this like awkward staring contest where if one player tries to scoop the Vivi first, the other player actually gets it. So you can't be the one to target Vivi first. And I think normally that's fine, but the issue is that if they ever get a second Vivi in the graveyard, they're guaranteed because they go for it, you scoop the one that they're trying to get, and then they untap and they get the other. And there's also issues with FOMO where like you don't want FOMO to have Delirium, but if you try to scoop something to let FOMO's Delirium go away, they can take the Vivi instead and make everything a Vivi.
Yeah.
So Ghost Vacuum is definitely a lot more awkward, but I think in some decks, like, and Sass, you've been talking about this for Esper Pixie, that the 1 mana versus 2 mana is actually really relevant when you're like wanting to pick things up and put them back down. So
yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. It's a conundrum. Well, what's the next cards you want to talk about to answer this deck?
Yeah, so I mean, Graveyard Hate is one option. There's also the option of just let's exile Vivi so we don't ever see Vivi. And those options are things like Obliterating Bolt, I think is a really common one. Just kill Vivi, and when he's dead, exile him so you can never get him under a Cauldron. But I think that kind of also falters because if they just never play the Vivi, if they just pitch it to a FOMO and put it under the Cauldron, your Obliterating Bolt looks really silly in that situation.
It's also really awkward to do Obliterating Bolt at sorcery speed if they have mana up for whatever God knows reason, if they play Vivi late game, like on turn 6 or 7, because they can just buff it out of range of Obliterating Bolt very easily with the combination of Vivi static and Cauldron putting a counter on it. Like, I hate that idea personally, but continue.
Yeah. Any 2 spells with Vivi put it out of range of Obliterating Bolt too.
Yeah.
There's also people are using, one of the most common ones is Abrade, which is the idea of let's just blow up the Cauldron and then have the backup of this is just like a removal spell for a small creature. And most Cauldron decks these days are actually main decking 1 or 2 Abrades because there's so many mirrors now that the deck is becoming so popular. I do think that this is quite a good option because it never feels like a bad card in your deck unless you're playing against like a control deck or something, in which case you board it out. But the destroy target artifact is very big upside for the Cauldron, and the deal 3 damage to target creature is just usually very relevant and very good. So I like Abrade, but I don't think that it's a perfect answer in the games where they just ignore the Cauldron game plan. There's also things like
real quick. Can I say something about Abrade too?
Sure.
I also think a reason why Abrade sucks, and I agree, I think Abrade is a really good answer, but part of the reason why Abrade always feels bad, because I played Izzet Prowess versus Izzet Cauldron a lot on Arena, because I really like the Prowess deck. And the reason why this always feels bad when you Abrade is they already got value with the Cauldron. So you're actually spending what it feels like 1 card for their 1 card, which is not 1 card, because they've already gotten like half or another card's worth of value out of it for it already being around. And that's why this feels really, really bad sometimes. Like, it doesn't feel like you can ever go even with the power of what like Cauldron does in the deck, because the turn they play it, they've already gotten value out of it most times.
I see what you're saying, yeah. And even if you have the Abrade held up to deal with it, they still get the counter on the creature, even if you blow up the Cauldron before the trigger resolves. So yeah, they get a free counter out of it. Another strategy that I've seen a lot of people using in white is Clarion Conqueror, which I think is a very interesting way to deal with the deck. It basically kind of does 2 things in one. Because it has the text that activated abilities of artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers can't be activated, it means that you can't activate the Cauldron, so you can't actually scoop things up and put them in the pot. But it also means that if they don't have the Cauldron and they just have a Vivi that they want to play, they can actually never activate the Vivi mana generation ability either. So it kind of attacks the deck on 2 fronts there, which I quite like that it's really flexible like that. I do think the downside of this is that it's 3 mana, which is a lot of mana for a hate piece that is also just a 3/3 that the deck can really easily answer, especially now that the deck is typically main decking 2 Abrades. They're typically main decking 3 to 4 Torch the Tower, which if you sack something can kill the Clarion Conqueror. They're also main decking several copies of Into the Floodmaw, which means they can just untap, bounce your Clarion Conqueror, and then go off with their Cauldron. So for 3 mana for this effect, I mean, I do think it's a powerful effect, but I wish this was less easy to answer for them, if that makes sense.
You know what I was just thinking? And I agree, because I haven't tried Clarion Conqueror yet in Pixie, and a lot of people are doing it yet, and I've been meaning to practice that with you, but I just keep forgetting. I do wonder, right? They could just, in Spider-Man and Avatar, just add an artifact in that says, like, 2 mana or 1 mana, right? Like, activated abilities of creatures can't be of spells can't be activated. Like, that'd actually be a good answer.
That would be really powerful. Yeah, I agree. Something that I've been playing around with is all of these cards that we've talked about are specifically targeting that Cauldron Vivi game plan, the plan A. And nothing that we've talked about actually handles the plan B of the deck, which is, I think, again, the reason the deck is so powerful is even if you don't have a Cauldron or a Vivi, you just have so many sources of card draw, card discard, and synergies with like Profts and Mako and stuff that you just sit there, you draw through your whole deck, you dig until you find whatever cards you want, and then you put a million counters on stuff and you swing with giant creatures. And I think that one way to answer that is to punish your opponent for just drawing all of those cards and drawing their way to the answer or to the right card they need. So one card that I think I'm really interested in is in red decks playing Razorkin Needlehead, which you may have never seen this card before because no one's ever played it in standard. But it's a Duskmourn 2-drop it costs red for a 2/2. It has first strike during your turn, but more importantly, whenever an opponent draws a card, Razorkin Needlehead deals 1 damage to them. So it's like kind of a baby Shieldred the Apocalypse. Like every time they draw, they take 1 instead of taking 2. It is 2 mana, so it's a very efficient card. Now, again, this has the issue that it is easy for them to answer with an Abrade or a Torch, but it also costs 2, not 3. And it also, I think, works really well in red decks that already want to be aggressive. Like if you're just playing mono red aggro and you can just go fast, this is going to be dealing a significant amount of damage to your opponent because whenever they draw any card, including their card for turn, they're going to get pinged. And then if they play like a Tursa or a Steamcore Scholar, they're getting pinged twice. If they play a Winter Night Stories, they're getting pinged 3 times. And I think a lot of the Cauldron deck relies on that card draw because you can generate all the mana you want with Vivi, and if you're not drawing cards to like spend the mana on, the deck kind of falls flat. So I haven't really tested this yet, but I am very interested in running like a red aggro list and just seeing if this is a good sideboard piece to deal with that plan B where the deck is just drawing cards and putting counters on everything.
I think this is a good idea, and I think the notion of attacking plan B instead of plan A is a good idea. I told you this before, I'm not sold on Razorkin. I think it's a good idea for mono red decks or aggro. I think that for sure. This could be a good idea for like this new mono red dragons deck. I think that could be a good idea. I also want to say this. People are calling this mono red dragons. It's just, or mono red aggro. It's mono red mid range that's playing some dragons that has dragon synergy. So I prefer to use the name mono red dragons, and that also just sounds cooler.
True.
I do think that like this idea of like attacking them for drawing a bunch of cards should be explored though. If there was like a Narset, like the 3-mana Narset in Modern in Standard right now, that would be like the best answer for this deck, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that would really, really fuck this deck. Maybe
I'm not sold on Razorkin Needlehead, but I commend you for putting something new out there, but I'm not sold on little Needlehead. I'm turning on my fan.
Well, I feel like I've covered all the things that I want to talk about this deck. I think it's a really hard deck to combat all the strategies. But hopefully someone will brew something or the next set will give us something. Yeah. Sass, did you have other stuff you wanted to talk about?
Going to RCQ this weekend. I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. What are you bringing?
What do you think, buddy?
I already know.
Yo, if anyone's listening to this and actually like wants to like tell me, can I talk about the blue balls versus stock up thing?
Please.
Actually,
let's finish with the blue ball discussion.
Okay. All right. So Cryogen Relic, our little blue ball that could, I think is an insane card, and I think people should look at it more. And I think people are actually starting to catch on. And I think this might be the better source of card draw in Esper Pixie that isn't stock up. I do not know what the correct thing is to do. I'm thinking of trying 3 balls, 2 stock up. I've tried 4 stock up. I've tried 4 balls. I've tried 4 balls, 1 stock up. I think it's very, very... I don't know what the best thing to do is in Pixie. I really, really, really don't. I really want... If anyone would like to... Please tell me the answer. Please, dear God. I know no one knows the answer, but I'm fucking so trying to figure out why you should play stock up versus Cryogen Relic or Cryogen versus stock up, whatever. I think it's something that's going to be really powerful.
I think I might. It's going to depend on scheduling and stuff. If I do, I'll probably bring Dimir midrange just because I think I'm most comfortable with it.
Wow.
I've ordered everything for Cauldron. I mean, I would want to play Cauldron if I had the cards, but the cards are
they're not going to arrive in time? Okay.
They're in the mail, yeah.
Okay. I thought you were going to get them by this weekend, and I was like, you're what? Because like last time I was like, you should play it, but all right.
No, I would definitely. I have most of Cauldron already, but I'm missing a few Vivis and like some of the like cheap cards in the deck that I needed to order, and I don't think they're going to be here by this weekend. So,
do you have Sunset Saboteur?
I don't think so, but if I did, I'd be open to trying it. I
think you should try it. I think it's really, really good, and I think that people are going to catch on to that too. I might, again, I'm pretty sure I want to play Esper Pixie for Orlando, but I wouldn't be surprised if I changed my mind and switched to mid-range, because I like the mid-range list too, and people are playing Tragic Trajectory in it. I think a lot of people are catching on that Strategic Betrayal is a really, really good card in this meta and are playing that in it. I like the Cecil, Preacher, Deep Cavern, Spyglass Siren package. I like this a lot. I don't know what I'm going to play either. I'm pretty set on bringing Pixie for this weekend, though. I just don't know. I do not know what the fuck I'm doing for my sideboard at all. There's like no guides. There's nothing. I think I just need to like try to play well and just like hope I have the answer at the right time. But I hope I don't see the Cauldron matchup, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to. I think after the data dump that people are freaking out about on the MTG Arena Challenge thing, which was run by Demir Midrange, by the way. I just want to say that this big tournament that at 54% Izzet Cauldron was won by Demir Midrange, which is really cool. I do think that like I'm probably just gonna expect to see like 500 of that matchup. Like I'm just not ready for that matchup this weekend. Like I don't want to play against that deck, but it's probably what is gonna happen. But I'm getting practice versus you every day.
I do think that for grinding RCQs, you're probably a little bit less likely to see this than the data might suggest, just because the price tag of the deck is so high. I feel like people who show up to RCQs and aren't like super invested in the Spike community will just bring whatever deck they had from last season that they can switch over, or they'll bring, like a cheaper version of whatever, like one of the cheaper decks in Standard. I think the Vivi deck is just so cost prohibitive that like only people who are like really there to like spike the event will bring it. But I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe everybody is just willing to drop $800 because they think the deck is fun.
It'll be interesting. And maybe we'll talk about like how my RCQ went next weekend, and if you go to one, how yours went, and we can maybe do an RCQ episode next weekend. But
yeah,
I'm so excited to play. I played a Standard Showdown this last weekend, and it was a fucking joke. But of course, there was fucking 2 Cauldron players there. Like it's
yikes.
It's 5 people at a little chill tournament, and 2 people were playing Cauldron. Like
that sounds like the correct meta percentage right now.
This is so crazy, bro. Anyway, I don't got anything else I want to talk about. You want to end it here?
Yeah, all right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll be Cauldroning, trying to survive in the new meta.
It's a tragic trajectory for my wallet. That's the title. That's the title right there.
All right, buddy. I'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this week's episode of the Scry Guys podcast. As you can tell, we're a bit of a newer podcast, so do what you can to spread it around, share it with your friends, post it on social media, basically anything to make us rich so that I can get a real editor and stop doing Sass's dirty work. You can contact us at scryguyspodcast@gmail.com, and have an amazing week.